Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a great day. And welcome to a video talking about everything that they put into test ROM that I'm aware of today. Now this one, they did not put out update notes, so honestly, there might be more videos, but there is a really big change that I had to make a video about. But there's basically a new gauntlet. It drops a lot of gear, and they added all of the gears so that you can basically test it by buying it from the DC's test shop right here. So I thought I'd take a look at it, compare it to the Merciless gear, talk about it, all that jazz. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So I decided that I would look at this gear on my ice, mainly because I have all the Merciless gear on the ice, and I assume that the most defensive options are gonna be for ice. There is some good news for people that like to play defensively. I do think that it's very viable that you could actually use some of this gear, right? When we're looking at the hat, for example, when you compare them, it's actually a pretty decent addition of the game. You get extra resist to both Death and Storm, which, I mean, nobody's complaining about that because those are actually pretty good schools right now. And you get 5 extra universal resist, and really the only thing you give up as an ice is a little bit of damage and 4 pierce. And in return, you get a good bit of pip chance. Honestly, if you compare these, I would say most people are probably going to lean towards the resist version on an ice anyways, mainly just because you need some pip chance. You can't just run full demiurge gear, so at least one piece of gear might actually make sense to rock. The robe, a little bit more disappointing, and I think, you know, the reason it's kind of simple, right? When you're looking at pieces of gear that we've had in the past, like Dragoon gear, we're looking at 19 universal resist, and here, you're not really getting that. I mean, yes, you get a little bit more resist in the Merciless. Once again, you're giving up some pierce, but this time, at least you're not giving up damage as well. I'm not really sure why anyone would switch over to the robe. I feel like if this is the best like defensive robe in the game, which I can assume because it's ice, I can't see other schools even remotely considering this. Again, yes, you get pip chance, but this is not really that much more defensive. A little bit of health, less shat chance, none of that's really that good. The boots, again, they continue this pattern, right? You give up a little bit of damage, you give up all the pierce in the world, and then you get a little bit of pip chance and a little bit of resist. And yeah, again, the 4 resist, yes, it is a little bit better. In fact, if you were to use the Highland Champions boots, hat, and robe, if you were to use like all 3 of these, you get about 11 more resist. Right now, you get about 55 resist, so with 11 more, right? The reason it's 55 is I don't have a brace jewel, but like, let's say that I did have 55 and I just switched over my gear, I would be giving up a lot of damage. I'd be giving up a lot of pierce, right? A lot of offense for about 11 resist. I'm not even gonna bother covering these. I mean, they give really cool item cards, but they don't give any pierce, and they give way less shad rating. I feel like if you were to use this, you would actually be screwing yourself over more than anything. So I don't think these are worth it, right? I don't think these wands are worth it. But like, if you're looking at these, right, what I'm noticing is that it seems like the hat adds a lot of resist, and the other ones, the resist that you get is not worth the pierce and the damage that you lose. I'll be honest, I had some high hopes for a defensive set because right now, it's a little too easy to do the following, right? You just run full Merciless gear. Literally, you don't think about your gear. Just run full Merciless, every Merciless gear that you can get. And then, instead of socketing an accuracy jewel, you can just socket 2 of these pip jewels, and you basically just make up for the pip loss, right? And you might need a D-Lance pet, you might need a rock mount like this one, you might need these things here and there, but you can basically get very good pip chance by doing that, and then you're not really giving up anything in terms of your damage, pierce, or anything for running full Merciless gear. So the pip chance that you get back on the defensive gear isn't even technically required. I feel like 1 piece of Highland gear, and that's all you really gotta do. And then you're looking at a gear set where you have tons of damage on every school, tons of pierce on every school, and honestly, because of the recent updates to the gear that I think they did this time, you also get a ton of block. Even on the most defensive school, I don't see the defensive set being better than just running the full offensive set, just running a bunch of pip chance wherever possible, and just spamming a bunch of hits. Now, here's the thing. At least with the new spellments, there is some strategy in terms of what hits you spam. Like, I think, like, you know, someone who goes out of their way to set up a conditional will actually probably benefit from this update a lot more more. And there are, you know, secondary schools now. You know, you get secondary peers, you get secondary damage. It is really interesting. I can't hate on that part. What I can hate on, though, is the fact that I just don't think this is viable defensive gear. I just don't really see it. And the reason being, like, let's say that you give up 5 damage and 4 pierce, you're giving up, like, 9 damage almost. Honestly, more, because pierce, I would say, is worth more than damage, because it reduces your opponent's resist. It's even better. And in return, you're getting 5 resist. That's not a good trade-off, ever. So, I just don't see why anyone would really switch. If you really need pip chance, sure, switch, but you don't even need to do that. I think what some of this gear is encouraging is a very, very spammy meta, and I get it. You know, like, the defensive meta recently, it's been a little crazy, right? Heals have been a little crazy. Spamming brace with 70 resist, it is a little crazy. That being said, if you're gonna remove both damage and pierce, this defensive set doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It's not defensive whatsoever. Honestly, the reason I'm actually, like, very critical of this is because the big problem that I see, beyond just, you know, ice running one piece and then just being a little too offensive. Every school that has 85% base accuracy or more on their spells is going to get a gigantic buff that absolutely does not fit their school identity. They're going to be more offensive because of the fact that they don't need to care as much about accuracy as the more offensive schools. Let's say that I were to run, you know, like a pet like this, right? So add 6 more resist with my brace jewel, and then I just ran full Merciless gear, right? The thing that I was talking about earlier. But now, let's say that I do it on a life, which has 90 base accuracy on everything. I could literally just give up, right? I could give up this accuracy fully and have 10 extra pip chance. I could use a rock mount, and what you'll notice is that I could run 152 damage, 55 resist. I could literally have like 12 accuracy still, which means I'm barely fizzling anything. And my pip chance would be 96. One of the most defensive schools would be able to comfortably have very, very high block, extremely high block, very, very high crit, extremely high pierce, and over 150 damage. Stats like this, the only thing I'm ever incentivized to do is 2 things. I'm just gonna literally TC infoul, and then I'm gonna spam the hell out of Luminous. That's all I'm really gonna ever have to do with this kind of setup. Like 152 damage, just add a little bit of pierce. Like, literally, with how low resist is for every school now, that's enough to do the full damage of this. You don't really have to use any of these other spells. And that is supposed to be on a school that's, like, it's supposed to heal. Why would I bother doing that if I could literally run stats that are this busted? A large part of this comes from the fact that they've introduced a whole new stat into Robes, which isn't bad. Adding damage to Robes, not bad at all. I don't mind it. But when it's 23 damage versus the 0 that we had before, that is a little crazy. It really, really throws a lot of things off balance. What's wild is that you actually probably cannot run full Merciless gear on a fire or a storm, because by giving up an accuracy jewel to double pip socket, you actually will fizzle. But schools like Life, schools like Death, Balance, they don't have to follow those rules. So what you get is a very, very weird situation where the most defensive schools can run the most offensive gear and run more damage and still have their health advantages over Storm, Myth, and Fire. That is my big concern. It's not just about the fact that, oh, people are just gonna be like spam hitting. No, if this gear comes out and it stays the way that it is, it literally makes the most defensive schools the most offensive for some reason, which I cannot comprehend. I don't mind that they're adding gear at level 150 that's very competitive. I'm actually a huge fan of it. It's just, I genuinely think that when you compare the offensive gear to whatever is defensive about this, I just don't see it. I really just don't see it at the moment. I see a little bit of resist in exchange for tons of pierce and damage, and I just don't think it's viable enough for anyone to use this, especially if they have a D-Lance jewel, if they have a rock mount, if they have double pip jewel setups. I feel like always they're going to be better off. There's still a lot of time left in test ROM. If this comes out in the live ROM, I'm not going to say like it's going to be unplayable or anything. I mean, it's plenty playable, don't get me wrong, but I do think school identity is going to be shooked. It will be shooked. Let me know what you guys think of this defensive setup. It is farmable from the gauntlet, presumably, so it shouldn't be too hard to farm because it's actually pretty easy drops. I am pretty concerned about the upcoming meta, especially if this is what they're considering defensive gear. Maybe I'm wrong, and, you know, maybe this isn't defensive. Maybe there's more gear that's more defensive, but I feel like this really seems like the alternative, and it's not much. As always, drop a like if you enjoyed this video. This is what I wanted to cover today because it is completely completely new. You guys should check it out yourselves. Let me know what setups you think is the best. Is there a combination that you guys like? Is it just full Merciless, like I said? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if somebody has not told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Drop a sub for news. Stay awesome. I will be streaming more PvP tonight with all this new gear. Stay awesome, y'all. And yeah.